What's up, everyone? Welcome to Inside Out Podcast. I'm your host, Yhá Mourhia Wright. The intention of this podcast is for you to enrich your life with behind-the-scenes interviews from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are ready to keep it real about their journey thus far and what making an impact looks like to them from the inside out. Enjoy. Everybody, we have Christine Garmendiz here today. Hello, Christine.
Hello.
Everyone who might not know Christine, I'm going to introduce you to her. She has been a native to South Bronx just about her entire life. Where before?
I was born in Queens, actually,
okay.
And then I was there for 3 months.
Okay.
And then I went to the Bronx.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Christine has been native to South Bronx just about her entire life. She has become a filmmaker, editor, director, production assistant, and producer in her own film projects and various productions shown on networks such as Nickelodeon and Bronx Net. She is also the marketing manager of the film organization and 48-hour film challenge, BX Film 48. Before she knew she would become this, she attended and graduated from Renaissance High School for Musical Theater, musical theater, and technology in the Bronx, and went to college at SUNY New Paltz to study digital media production. It was during those 4 years at college she would pursue internships with The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and Turner Broadcasting, now Warner Media. She is also a T. Howard Foundation alumni and an International Radio and Television Society Foundation recipient. When she's not freelancing and on the grind, she helps take care of her little brother, sells coquito, listens to Bad Bunny or J. Cole on her way to work, and is working towards becoming a certified teaching artist. Everyone, Christine Garmendiz is here with us. Hey. All right, we have to get into this, my first segment. So what's up? Christine, how are you feeling about the world? Where's your head at? We chatted a little bit, but let our listeners here know what's going on with you.
Oh my God. So as a creative and also as a freelancer, it's stressful. It's a stressful time right now with the whole COVID-19 quarantine going on. Really, really hard trying to get my creative juices flowing, if that's a good way to put it. But yeah, just trying to truck along, like trying to inspire myself while being at home with like 5 other people. It's like a crowded house. So I'm trying to keep sane while also still trying to keep being creative until this whole thing is over.
Well, you know what? It's important, like we were just talking about, to keep yourself leveled and to check in with yourself. One of the things that I have been challenged with, Christine, is being okay with not being okay. I think that's really important to just be present with that. It's a challenge, especially as women of color, to accept that that's not, I don't know that I don't have statistics, but I almost don't think that's innate within us to just be like sitting with things. I think we are very resolution and take care of others based.
Yes.
It's very natural to us. So it's just like sit with myself and then also not be okay. And then what do I do from there? But also working through that is natural. So keeping that head about like, okay, this is where I'm at right now, and how do I rise above and get myself through this. So anything else about what's going on with you right now?
Yeah, it's kind of just been like a cycle of like ending in like reassurance. Like I just see everybody like creating content and stuff like that while I'm just like sitting back, just trying to be okay with it not being okay, like you said. Taking a break. But then I see everyone making content and everyone doing all these videos.
Girl, they better not be filming right now. What they making? Oh, you mean like in the... What do you mean? In their home?
Yeah, like in their home and stuff. And I'm like, okay, do you? But I'm also like, damn, like I should be doing this. But I'm like, no, like you do enough. Like it's a whole like internal like monologue I have with myself at least once a day. And then throughout all that mental chaos, I'm like, it's okay to not do anything right now. Just chill out. It will be okay. So a lot of self-reassurance every day.
It is. It's okay to just be. And the thing is that we are all in different places. Some people, I last week I was being a little judgmental. I was kind of like, well, why does everybody got to post lives? Everybody got to be on. It was really irritating me. And now I'm just like, you know what? Everybody has their own process, and not everyone will necessarily take this time to process. Some people will continue to hustle their way through. For me personally, it's important that I use this time to not necessarily keep that same hustle mentality that I usually have. Continue to
Mm.
work and figure that out. But for me, what I want on the other side of this is a certain peace with being. I don't want to continue the same with the same momentum or trying to mimic the momentum that I could have when, I could roam about and go to events. And so yeah, with your own process, definitely what you're doing is great. Like that's okay. It's okay to, of course, like everyone's doing
Mhm.
things. I'm not. And then you sit with it and
Yeah, I have to
it's
keep reminding
valid.
myself it's okay. How I feel is valid. Just I
Mhm.
try not to drive myself crazy.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. All righty. So, Christine, why aren't you famous yet?
Oh man, I don't know. I think I'm still perfecting a lot of my crafts.
Yeah, we were talking about doing our prelim interview and just really the challenges that you've had. Tell us more about you. We want to get to know you. Who are you?
I'm 24 years old. I'm the oldest of three siblings. I'm also half Guyanese and half Puerto Rican, although I say New Yorican instead because I don't speak Spanish. And I didn't grow up in a very like traditional Puerto Rican household either. So I'm definitely very, very New Yorican.
We were talking about uh, what it was like for you in school and what that journey has been like in now your school itself predominantly white. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Hmm.
And then we already know, or I'm not going to assume anybody that listens to this knows, but if you don't know, now you know that the
Hmm.
entertainment industry is very white male dominated. So it's a lot of white maleness that
Yes.
you have been surrounded by in your more recent years, your collegiate career, and now your professional career. What has that been like for you? What kind of culture shock, and when did you discover, ooh, I'm a woman of color, person of color? I'm different.
Yeah. Since I was a kid, I've always loved like media and film, like everything. Like I was just like starstruck by it. Like, wow, like you can make like nothing into something, like a whole
Mm,
storyline from an idea. I was like just fascinated with that. Whereas my whole family was like on the whole medical, my entire family and like families are all in the medical career. So I'm literally like the one person like decided to not pursue that. So kind
mhm.
of like the black sheep of the family. I always knew I wanted to pursue this. I just never really thought about the whole male straight whiteness in
Mhm.
Hollywood and just in the media industry in general. I never thought about that. If anything, I feel like that was a really big advantage for myself, not really paying attention to that growing up, like in
Mm.
high school and even before then.
Why?
Um,
Why was that an advantage?
I feel like that would have held me back so much because when
Mm,
I learned that in college, I admittedly it did hold me back
okay.
because that's when I was like, "Oh, there's a whole 'nother race, like, gender group, like, sexual orientation that, like, runs this thing." You know what I
Mm,
mean? Is it
mhm.
okay to curse on this?
Yeah, girl.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
Okay. Well, there's a whole bunch of those, really old white men that run this shit, and I remember I used to watch the Oscars, like, all the time. I've always watched
Mm,
it by myself because nobody else in my family is interested in it, which is okay. But I would always just be like, "Oh," like, I never really sat there and realized, like, "Oh, everybody here is, like, white." Not
mhm,
everybody, but a good 90% of the people were white, and it never really stuck out to me because I don't think I ever experienced that personally ever happening to me, like, me getting singled
mhm,
out, at least in the term of, white and then not white. When I went to college, I finally felt that, "Oh, I'm a person of color. I'm a woman of color
mhm.
entering the media industry." It wasn't until like my first like class in my major. It was a class that had a bunch of juniors and seniors in it, but I got into the class because I filled up some requirements beforehand. So I took an advantage and I was like, okay, I'll start this early. So I
Oh, wait,
got
hold on,
in.
let's pause. Snap fingers
Oh,
for that.
oh,
Okay, look
thank
at
you.
you being ahead. Okay,
Yes,
go ahead,
thank
go ahead.
you. For real, so I had all that confidence. Like I was so confident. Like everybody who like
Mhm.
I went to like high school in the Bronx and everything, they were like, "You're gonna do great things. We're all rooting for you. Like you're gonna be that person we're all looking up to." And I'm like, "Okay, no pressure." Going into this thing with all that kind of confidence, and then in that same like 45-minute class period, it just got killed. So I
Mhm.
remember walking into the room. And I just sit down at a random computer station where there's other people. And I didn't notice when I walked in, but every single person was like a white male. But it didn't
Mm.
bother me because I'm like, I'm here to do my thing. As soon as I sat down, there were three other men around me. And as soon as I sat down, they all got up and went to another computer station.
Hmm.
And I just
All
was like,
men?
yeah, all men. And I was like, I think there was a, with the exception of like one other white woman that was there, but I was like the only woman of color that was there. Yeah, they didn't even sit next to me. I was like, oh, do I stink? Like, I don't understand like why that just happened. Like it just took me back because I just felt like that was so directed to me. There was still a couple more minutes left for the class period, and a black male walked in. He's like such a great friend now. But he walked in and he sat at another computer station, and then I believe there were two or three other white men that were there, and they got up and went to another
Oh,
computer
God.
station. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh," I'm like,
Mm.
"Now I get why that just happened."
Did that
So
hurt?
it hurt so much because I was like, "You don't even know me." I was like,
Mhm.
"I don't understand why that just happened." I was just sitting there like, "Did this just happen?" And I'm just trying to wrap my head around any other reason that could have possibly happened. So he ended up just coming over to my station and he just gave me a look. Like, you know that look. Like we just look at each other and we're like, "All right." Like
Mhm.
we're gonna
I
we're
guess we're friends now.
yeah, literally. I'm like, I guess we're friends.
Best
Literally.
friend.
Because I already knew going in, like, it's all partner-based work. Because 'cause you're never
Mhm.
doing anything production-wise by yourself, so I was like, "All
Right.
right, we're each other's partners throughout this entire thing." Like,
Mhm.
unspoken nonverbal communication was already there.
Yeah.
I remember getting home, not getting home, getting back to my dorm room and just crying because I was
Mm.
just like that was so unfair. I remember like we were just getting all our teams together to like work throughout the entire semester, and literally no one wanted to work with me. I was like, is it because I'm too young? Is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm brown? I'm like, is it because of all three? Like I was just
Mhm.
like so confused, and I was like, I don't know who to talk to about this. I've never experienced before, like ever, from a whole group of people.
Where did that go? And I mean, that's trauma, right?
Hmm.
And so where do you think, or you might know, how did that trauma convert itself in you? Where did it go?
When that happened, I had like a good like reflection meditation with myself. And I was
Mm.
like, listen, like again, more self reinsurance. It was like I just had to keep telling myself they don't know you. If they
Mm.
knew you, like they would definitely be sitting with you or wanting to get to know you. Like if you looked like them, they wouldn't have been a problem. So what I did was I just worked with what I had. So me and the person who sat next to me, we just worked throughout that entire semester. So we it came up to our first project. You had to basically take a whole bunch of photos and
Mhm.
make a whole film out of it. So we did that. And when we presented our project, they were so like mesmerized by it. They were like so
Mhm.
impressed. So I didn't know whether to take that as an insult or not, like, wow, you can do this, or whether
Right.
they genuinely were impressed. Till now, I'll never know. But
Mhm.
after that project, that's when they actually started talking to me. And this was like probably like 4 or 5 weeks into the course.
Mhm.
Otherwise, throughout that entire, like, 4 or 5 weeks, never said a word to me, never said hello, nothing. But after I showed my project, then they were like, "Oh, like, what's your name again?" Like, "Oh, do you wanna work on the next project?"
It's
Mhm,
interesting because a couple of things can happen. One, it's like, yeah, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep working. But the other thing that happens so often, is it meets internalized hatred or
mhm.
self-loathing, and it becomes, how can I continue to get this high of white acceptance? And a lot of times chasing that high of white acceptance comes at the cost of rejecting and belittling our own people.
Yes, so that's
you
that's
know
exactly what happened next. So I was
Mm.
just like, oh, like finally I'm getting the recognition that I knew I deserved. So now I'm just like, what's the next step? So there's another project that happened, and two of the other guys wanted to partner with me, which were the same people that actually got up the first day that I
Huh.
went into the class.
Right.
So my understanding at that time, or my perspective, was like, okay, well, now that they know that I'm worth being here and I earned my spot here, like maybe now we can actually work together and make something really great. But what
Mhm.
ended up happening was I started doing all the work for the project, because to them, they
Mm.
were also seniors. For them, it was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. I can get a low grade and still get by." But
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, I'm a freshman. I'm setting my GPA this like first semester. And on top of that, it's like I care. I cared about the
Mhm.
work that I did. So I ended up doing all the work, and then I told my professor, and he did not make that a big deal at all, because at the end of the
Mhm.
day, we all still got the same grade,
Mhm.
which I basically carried on my back. So then I was like, wow, like I feel like I kind of sold myself out for this idea that I had, that, oh, well, now they accept me. So now I'm kind of like one of them. But that's when I learned like that will never happen. That's when I started really feeling like, okay, like I'm really in this by myself.
Hey, y'all, I know this interview with Christine is amazing. Stay tuned for a quick message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. What has that been like? The feeling like you're by yourself in this, right? In many ways, but publicly, I assume a lot of people, a lot of family, friends are looking up to you to again be famous or make it,
Hmm.
whatever that even means anymore. Um,
For
so
real.
but what is that? How do you manage the feeling of otherness coupled with standing out and then also loneliness? Like, those were a lot of things that happen at once for creatives like us.
Yeah, it's a lot, and even now I still try to like figure that out, because there's always new situations when it comes to that kind of subject. But at least for that time period, I was just like, whenever I did my class, like I just kept my mouth shut. I did my work, and then when I went back to my dorm with all my friends from the city, we all just
Mhm.
like went off on our experiences. Because some of them were like,
Mm.
one was in like sociology, one was also doing medical, but we're just like, we all had the commonality that we were all people of color in these spaces that didn't have a lot of us in it. So I found like not like refuge there, but kind of like comfort in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had people to relate these scenarios with, and then it had more reassurance that I'm like, okay, I'm actually not the only one going through this. It's my own struggle going through it, but
Mhm.
everybody is having their own actual struggle going to this predominantly white institution and just trying to figure themselves out. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, like even though we had all our classes, we had our parties and all that. Like we had our
Mhm.
socializing times for all just people of color in general, just to be together and just vibe out. So if that wasn't a space that was present, like I mean, honestly, I don't even know if I would have finished college, to be very
Mhm.
honest.
I understand. I have a similar experience in that there was what we had called a multicultural center at
Mm.
Santa Clara University where I attended undergrad, and literally, if it was not for the MCC, I am so serious. I would have either transferred, but I certainly would not have been able to finish because we talked about this last week when you and I spoke on the phone, and
Mhm.
I believe I told you that I had a similar experience. It was maybe my first day of school, if not my second. It was within the first week, and I sat next to this woman. I see her now. I'll never forget. I sat next to her in our religions of the book class. It was what it was
Mm.
called. I went to Jesuit school, so we had to take 3 religions courses throughout the 4-year, 4 years in the undergrad. And so, anyways, I sat next to her, and she moved or like
Mm-mm.
nudged over, and I went home. If not, I don't think it was that necessarily that day. I think I had a couple of more experiences within my first week of realizing my blackness was becoming this thing that, I don't want to say got it in my way, but it
Yeah.
definitely changed and altered how people would interact with me. And so I remember coming home and I asked my family, I said, "Did you ever wonder why God made us black?"
Mm.
I said, "Why did he do this?" And my parents were so upset, but I was in pain. I was just like,
Yeah.
I am so good. I'm so good. I'm fun. I'm da 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 da. Why do I have to be this thing that people hate just because I look like this? And it was really the beginnings of me coming to terms, and I don't mean bad terms, I mean coming to pride, really, coming into
Yes.
pride of my identity. How has identity played a role in you being an artist? What kinds of stories do you want to tell?
Wow, that's such a great question. Only because like just the road to like reclaiming my identity has been insane. And
Mhm,
most of it has happened in college, that now
mhm,
the content that I create, that I
mhm,
support, and that I like help create as well, that's kind of like not only like is it a brand now to like be yourself, which I think is
mhm.
great, but again, it's like that commonality. If you share something with somebody that you can relate to,
Yes.
and when you work on a project on something like that, like only great things can happen, because if you're passionate about yourself and who you are and what you own, it definitely shows in your work. And
Mhm,
because that's something that I've learned for years and have been studying for years about my own self, that now when I create content that has to do with that, like people can see that, wow, like this girl cares.
mhm,
She knows what she's talking about. I think I made my first like short documentary my senior year of college, and it was about this woman in the Bronx. She's an immigrant, but she's also a food vendor, and she's
mhm,
actually a really close friend of mine. When I finally gathered all like the technical tools from like all my classes, that's when I we had the ability to make a film about anything. So the first thing I went to was my hometown, and it's the Bronx. Like I don't know any other place better than the
mhm.
Bronx. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do what I know. When I finished that piece, people were literally like in tears because they never really see the life or the story of somebody that has that kind of lifestyle.
Mhm.
So when I finally uncovered something like that, that's when I realized like, wow, like I need to continue to do this, because not only did it make me feel good telling her story, but it made me feel good knowing that people who never knew that she existed or people like her exist, them learning something like that and educating people is like, that's when I knew like, okay, like this is definitely what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Give
And
us
it's
the
just,
title of the doc.
oh yeah, so it's called Chula,
Mhm.
because I call her Bonita Chula. And it's, if you go on YouTube, if you type in my name, Christine Garmendiz, it will be there. It's
And
called
I'll include the
Chula.
link too in the info
Oh,
here.
cool. It's called Chula, the short documentary. It's a quick 10-minute day in the life of her. Me myself, I don't speak Spanish, so the person who edited it is actually her daughter, and
Mm,
she's my best friend. But yeah, when we were making that together, that's when we both were realizing like we both had the same commonality, where we're two women of color and we're like lost in like this university. Like, how does
right.
these classes that were taught tend to us? So we just leaned on each other that this entire time. So making that kind of film made me realize that wow, and identity is so important and is a commonality everybody deals with, especially
Yes.
people of color. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stick to this, because after my own experience and then doing that, I was like, all right, this is something I definitely know I'm passionate about.
I was blown away and I was like, "Wow, wow." And that's why I wanted you to plug the title too, because don't s we don't sell ourselves short here, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, for real.
Right? Uh,
Oh my God, I was so proud of it.
yeah, as you should be, as you should be. I was very, very moved. And it was also just a really important lens. I mean, thinking about right now to COVID and how it's impacting everyone's lives and how our storytelling is even canonized now, right? Like there is the stuff we made
Hmm.
prior to this, and then there's the art we're going to make after this. And to just
Yes.
see, see the way that storytelling is impacting the world and how we're really making sure that we're telling the stories about our communities and our loved ones like you have. It's really important what you're doing. Do you think that you'll primarily make documentaries, or are you exploring everything?
Definitely open to exploring anything. I feel
Okay.
like now is like the time, because
Hmm.
in college it was like also organized, like, oh, do this, that. But then when I finally realized like what it is that I like
Hmm.
to work on, that's when I was like, all right, anything that has to do with it, or anyone that like has that dream or wants to like put out those kind of things that have to do with anything, but when it comes to like identification and self-identity, like I wanted to be in that project because
Mm-hmm.
I always want to learn and be involved in things like that. Not only to help create that kind of content, but like just for myself so I can just learn even more what it's like to be in that kind of process. Because I feel like when you
Absolutely.
make things like that, like everybody's also just learning about themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
working amongst other people, not even like just getting the product done, the process of the production is always like my favorite part
Yeah.
because you're learning about all these people who are working on a project on self-identity, and then everybody is like learning from that to put into themselves. Like I think it's just like such a like a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people sit back and realize. I feel like everyone's so mesmerized by like, oh, like the Marvel
Mm-hmm.
movies and superheroes and big budget blockbuster media. I mean, yeah, those films are great. What we make too is just as great. We just, we don't have the money or
Yep.
the budget to make it, but if you have a story that's there, for me, that's the money maker right there. Because you could make anything look super pretty with like all the best audio engineer you
Mm-hmm.
have, the best DP that I don't know, like Brad Pitt works with all the
Mm-hmm.
time, but like if your storyline is trash, like no one's gonna watch
But
it.
on that note, so you're segueing right into what I want to talk to you about, which is, if I'm a listener and I'm like, okay, well, this woman has, I mean, she's worked with Stephen Colbert, Nickelodeon. Like, how do I do that? What is the real Christine about outside of the titles and the networks and the shows you've worked on? What's the true experience? Because outside looking in, people would say, all right, well, you're in the door. Of course you can do that. You've got it. But what's the truth? What are you really
Yeah.
experiencing? Talk to us.
Yeah, I get that a lot where it's like, I don't know, some people make me feel like what I went through was
Mm,
easy because to them it's like it sounds impossible to do. They're like, how the hell did you get an internship with Stephen
mhm,
Colbert? Like when thousands of people apply for that position, or like, how did you end up working at like Nickelodeon and doing this? You must have it easy. And I'm like, oh my God, this is
mhm.
not easy. But behind the scenes, it's just, I feel like I say this a lot. It just has to do with a lot of like self
Yeah.
reassurance that like it's okay for me to be in this room because what I experience now that I can say just generally is that I'm the only person from my area that's
Mm,
always in the room. So that comes with the dialect of how I speak or how I look or how I dress. And that interferes with the environment that like
mhm,
corporate has, but definitely has a lot of people talking throughout these internships and throughout these jobs that I've had is like code switching,
mhm.
like like all these like things sound great, but I'll be having some terrible days where I'm just like, damn, why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Like if I get treated this terribly or like if like there's such ignorant people like in this like industry, not everyone
Right.
obviously, but like there's a good chunk of people. But it'll be like those experiences that like I'll go through the cycle of like, damn, why am I doing this? And then it goes right to uplifting. Like, okay, now I have to remind myself why it is that I do this. That
And why is it?
it's not only like just about me on the micro level. It's like, well, this is what I've always dreamed of being in. And even now, I still feel that same passion. Why should I let people who don't understand who I am or how I look stop me from that just because they're
Mhm.
ignorant?
Mm,
And then that motivates me to be like, if I can pave this way, if I can be one of the two women of color in this internship, maybe next year it'll be four and then maybe eight,
mhm,
opening those
mhm.
kind of like doorways. Like I never really think about that until I really sit back and like reflect.
What sacrifices have you made? Because I think that a lot of times
Mm,
especially with social media and all the things in our society now, how we're shaped specifically in the USA, it can be very much like, how do I get there? But what I'm curious about that a lot of people don't talk about is sacrifice. So, what
mm,
sacrifices have you made? Because I'm not saying that the listeners should make all of these same sacrifices, but I am going to say that it might be a little bit of a guiding light into
yes.
how you've gotten into these rooms and how you've gotten the internships.
So sacrifices I've had to make. Wow, that's also a really great question because these are things I really don't think about, and I those are things you need to think about because that really empowers you to keep going.
Mhm.
So I'll start like in high school. I remember I would get allowance for like maybe like $10 a week or every 2 breaks, I remember saving up that money and buying film equipment. So all my friends would be going out eating, like, like here we have Concourse Plaza, like going to the movies and getting all these necklaces and stuff like that, like all those like trends that back then and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I can't get none of that. I can't get the cool Air Maxes. I can't get the sneakers, this and that, because I'm saving up to buy all this film equipment. And when I finally buy the film equipment, I don't have nobody to like show me how to use it. I've been using YouTube. So that was a big sacrifice I had to make, which was like, being with the culture, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
because in high school, everyone always had those specific pair of sneakers or that cool hairdo, or like, like everyone always like had like an aesthetic to them. And then for me,
Right.
it was usually jeans and a t-shirt and like Vans or Converse or whatever. So I didn't really get to formulate an aesthetic just because I didn't have like the money to do so. So I had to sacrifice that to buy like film equipment. Definitely in terms of knowing where I wanted to go to school in high school, like I had the great opportunity to pick whichever high school I wanted to go to in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked literally the farthest one from my area. My parents are also really traditional, and the cons of that is like you can feel like you're suffocating from just like their parenting. So I'm just like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, I need to go, like literally go as far as possible. So I went to Renaissance High School, which is also Lehman High School. And it took me about an hour and a half to get to school, an hour and a half to 2 hours to get back home. And I loved it because I took that time to like be around other people. And that's what kind of taught me how to not like network, but just like learn how to be friends with people and learn just how to talk, because
Mm-hmm.
I was also a really really shy person and also really
Okay.
introverted. So I think like that really brought me out of my shell. But yeah, that was a sacrifice I had to make too, was like time away from my family. Like, okay, like I kind of need to distance myself so I can learn who I want to be. And then in college, the sacrifice, yeah, there were a lot of sacrifices in college, which were definitely financially, I guess socially as well too. Well, everyone like, everyone has like their schedules, their syllabi. I don't know the word for multiple
I think it's syllabi. It's been a long time
syllabi.
since I said that word. Syllabi.
Syllabi.
Listen, okay, we're gonna code switch syllabuses. Anyways, go ahead.
Syllabus. Oh my God, like the sacrifices I've had to make in my classes, I'm pretty sure other people have experienced this too, but at least for my own personal sacrifice is like saying, just like going off on people. Like literally, like there were times I'm like, yo, you deserve to get told off right now because like this would not run if you were in my neighborhood. Like there'll be like not so many professors, but there were like a lot of professors that honestly were really ignorant
Mm.
in teaching, especially people of color. And I remember this one instance, oh my God, like just holding my tongue was like I count that as sacrifice because
Mhm.
I'll go off on someone like, when I know what they're saying about me is wrong. And basically he was stereotyping me. And I really, really wanted to like point that out to him. Like, you are stereotyping who I am as a person. Like that's not something I would do. Basically what the situation was, the equipment that they gave us was super old. And, it delayed the production process. So I was
Got
like, all
you.
right,
Makes sense.
this is how production works. Like nothing is usually like on deadline to deadline. Like
Ain't that
sometimes
the
you just,
truth?
yeah, exactly. Like you need to be like have room for flexibility. Like that was not his concern. So when I brought it up to him, like, oh, like this is turning late, like just want to let you know the reasons why. What he
Mhm.
told me was, oh, so you think you're better than everyone else? And I'm like, what do you mean by that? Like I literally had to like oh my God, my face was like so red and I'm brown. So like how red my face must have
Mhm.
been. I was like, what do you mean? Like that was just like the line I had to say.
Mm.
What do you mean by that? Like, oh my God, I wish I could remember what he was saying. I just need like a time to like think about
Mhm.
it. Cause now I'm like a little heated. I'm like, oh,
See, that's how it be though. The body don't know. The body doesn't know if it was 10 years ago or yesterday or today. The body's like, oh, I remember that. Well, again, because it goes to the trauma of the situation of the othering. Was he affirmative actioning you?
yeah. And I'm just like looking at him and I'm like, no, that's not the case. Like
Hmm.
at all. Like if anything, if you want to know what I've been doing, like I've been here in this room every day from like 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., like getting this project and making it as good, to hand in. It was because of the subject of the film that we were making. But the film itself was about Black men in education and
Okay.
what it's like for Black male students to be in an education major and then learning to become teachers, like coming into
Mm.
that world and then teaching in urban neighborhoods. Because
Mm-hmm.
when I grew up, I had predominantly like white female teachers. Like I grew up with a whole bunch of people of color from all different like areas of the Bronx. Like
Mm-hmm.
props to them, and I love them all for what they've done. But I'm like, I can only count on my fingers how many times I had a black male teacher, and that's one.
Mm.
So I thought that was a great thing to work on. And he's like, "Oh, like just because of your subject, like do you think that needs more time compared to everyone else's?" And he said that in a way like, "Oh, like because you think that subject is better than everyone else's." And I'm like, "No, like this takes time, and also that has nothing to do with what I just
I'm
said."
all see, my ego would come. I'd be like, yeah, because they ain't talking about nothing. I ain't never heard.
And I had to like hold my tongue. I had to code switch the hell out of that
Ooh,
conversation.
child.
I'm like, I don't agree with what you're saying because of
Mhm,
this, and that. Where in actuality, I wanted to pop off on him and be like, who the fuck do you think that you're talking to?
mhm,
Like, what? Like, you're so ignorant. Like, I wanted to go off. So those kind of situations, like I've had to sacrifice not like being who I am, like because I'm not like
mhm.
angry, but I just had to hold myself back just because I didn't want to be perceived as like, oh, she's like this angry, like aggressive person all of a
Right.
sudden. Like it's always like black or white with somebody. I can't
Mhm,
just have an emotion. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Like if I'm angry, I'm gonna be labeled as like, oh, that angry brown student.
mhm.
And I'm just like, okay, like I have to be at their level and always be a step above them.
That pressure can be very unkind to us.
Mhm.
So segueing into that though, I have a three-part question. What hurts you right now? And it could be anything, industry, world, whatever. What do you want to heal? What would you like to bring healing to? And what brings you joy? Hurt, heal, joy.
I feel like what's hurting me now is like just like the world in general. And I'm kind of just like unlearning everything I thought I learned before,
Mm,
especially with just America in general. Like, I already know there's like systematic oppression, and I feel it all the time when I go to work. And people don't notice that, obviously, because they don't experience it. And I'm like, all right, I get that. But then I'm just like, especially with like this pandemic that's going on right now,
mhm,
and like distribution of money, and like,
mm,
I have friends that are like still now going into work, and it's pissing
mm,
me off because I'm just like, oh, like the president wants us to stay home and the president wants us to do this, but he also doesn't create an environment, nor does he allow people to actually do that.
mhm,
It's like these huge corporations will go out of business within a week. But like I'm just like, how does that happen when you pay your staff minimum wage or less? And it just gets me so like really pissed off. I have friends that work at like Rite Aid. I have a friend that works in a nursing home. They're so fearful for getting sick, but they can't even take sick leave because they don't get that. They don't have any kind of vacation time. And they
mhm,
work minimum wage. And those are like really important jobs because now they're considered essential. But I'm like, how are
mhm.
they considered essential if they are not getting anything out of it? They're still getting
Hmm.
their 15-hour pay, nothing more. They got like a $200 bonus. What is that going to do when, God forbid, they get the virus? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, and even if they did get the virus, like how would they go to the hospital? They don't have health insurance.
Mm,
So it's that whole like system of like health insurance and people not getting it. And I feel like a huge problem through like the reason why it's spreading so fast here is because people
mhm,
just don't have health insurance and they can't go to the hospital and stay there for weeks to get better. Because in
mhm.
the end, when they come out, it's going to cost them hundreds, thousands of dollars. It just, that's something that really hurts because I'm just like, damn, like you would think that this country, especially in a time of a pandemic, would show some kind of concern for
Mhm.
people. Like everyone says, "Oh, we're so like individualistic." And I'm just like but how? Like this place is like driven like a machine.
Mhm.
Like I'm really fortunate to like work from home. I notice like so many other people can too, and it's just because of the fact that like I'm sorry, this country, I personally think this country does not care about its people, but they just
Mhm.
care about the people's like money, like
Yeah.
it's kind of just using everybody at this point.
Mhm.
It hurts because I don't know what's going to happen like post
Mm.
corona, like
Mhm.
now that all of these things have been let out of the closet, it's like we can't go back to normal. Like this
Yeah.
president wants us by May to go back to normalcy. And I'm like, there is no normal after this. Now we know what this country is capable of when it comes to distributing money to people who need it. You know,
Whew.
like you've got you've got countries like in Germany and France and stuff paying
Hmm.
people at least some kind of percentage of their paychecks so they can live. Whereas here, the conversation of just giving someone $1,000 a month is way too
Hmm.
much to ask
Hmm.
for. But you can
Hmm.
invest trillions of dollars into the stock market. It's just like I could
And
go
it's
on about
suspicious
this.
too. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
suspicious. I'm like, will we like there's this like it feels too good to be true. And in other countries, it's like, well, that's a no-brainer. Like, absolutely do that. But here it feels like, nah. Nah, really? Like,
Yeah.
what's the catch? Because we don't, that means you don't trust, right? And that means that trust has not really been earned. It's like the when you're moved away from the machine and the normal, right? Whatever that was, has been changed. It's now like, wait, but I don't actually trust that you're going to actually take care of me. And that's why we work so hard because this we don't believe that without doing this, that, working hard and sacrificing really family time and quality of life, that we can be able to survive. We don't, then the basic human rights also, it also means we don't really trust that we'll get the basic human rights here.
Yeah.
It poses a lot of questions. What do you want to heal and how?
Oh my God, if I could heal that, I would. Because I'm like, I
Hmm.
already got trust issues. Like now I got it with the with the government. I'm like, what is going on? Um, but I digress. At least like for healing, especially now, definitely like to heal my community,
Mm.
and my neighborhood. What's been happening even obviously before the virus is a lot of gentrification that's been going on. And I have a film initiative I co-founded with three other filmmakers. One of them is my friend that helped me make the Chula documentary. We all band together and we're like, listen, like we got gentrification going on. Like
Hmm.
we haven't had her come up yet in the Bronx. Like now is the time that at least I feel now is like a Bronx renaissance of like art
Mm.
and stuff that's going on, but it's really quiet. And we just want
Okay.
to make that loud. And there's a lot of people, especially now, that are like really scared about whether they're going to be here for the next 5 or 10 years. Like, even
Hmm.
myself, I'm like, I don't even know if I'll be able to live in my neighborhood in the next 5 years. Every time I walk outside, I see another Starbucks being opened. I see less of the people in my community
Yeah.
there. Like the OGs in my community are dying off. How are we upholding that when we get older
Hmm.
to maintain that sense of community? Because now people don't really talk to each other anymore how we
Mm.
used to. So we're trying to like kind of bring that back slowly with the use of film, healing in a way that only like I know best, and it's through
Yeah.
media. Like I know that media is like a pro and a con for a lot of things, but I mean that's what I used to escape to for
Hmm.
everything. Like damn, I'm mad, I'm gonna watch a movie real quick and get over what I'm
Yeah,
feeling. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Or I'll be like, damn, like that's not what she did in that movie. Like I'll compare my scenarios to what happened.
Real life
Like
scenarios.
and
Well,
like different
actually, in this
movies.
movie, listen, that's the power of
Yeah, like
media.
oh my god. Yeah, like what is it? What is it? You ever seen This Christmas? I think that's what the name of the
Yeah,
movie is.
yeah,
This
yeah.
Christmas with
Yes.
like
Oh, I
Chris Brown
love
and
that movie.
yo, when she put the soap on the bathroom
Yeah.
floor and let him slip around, I was like, ooh. I watched that for 2 seconds and I'm like, oh, should I? And I'm like, no, don't do it. Don't do that.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god.
okay, if this is like my coping mechanism, like let me see if I can branch this
Yeah.
out to other
Huh.
people.
Yep.
Even for myself, I wish I had the initiative that I'm doing now for
Hmm.
myself because now we're just introducing filmmakers or at least want to be filmmakers to other people from all
Hmm.
different levels. Like just seeing the look on people's faces, like when they meet these kind of people in their area and they're from their area, like 3 blocks away from them is like this cinematographer who's like probably worked with like Cardi B
Hmm.
or something. And they're just like, damn, I didn't even know I lived amongst these kind of people.
Mm.
It's like, it's a really like good feeling to know that, if I can bring someone to meet another person so they
Yeah.
can build up, that's the kind of healing I want to be for someone.
That's beautiful. And I think it naturally brings us to what brings you joy, but like voice that, put
Yeah.
words to that. What brings you joy, Christine?
Not even to like
No, yeah.
continue on to that, but just like little things that like bring me joy is like food. I love food. I think food is the best gift you could ever give anybody. Like honestly, my neighborhood brings me a lot of joy just because I know like when I walk down the streets, the kind of
Mm.
history that it holds and even the trauma that it holds
Mhm.
too. And then of course what brings me joy is watching people's like dreams come
Mm.
true. I always want to be part of that kind of process as long as, someone genuinely wants that to happen. So especially when I had my networking event, it was like the first event I've ever thrown like in my entire life
Mhm.
that was not school related. Just seeing like the look on people's faces and they're like, wow, I can do this. Or when we brought in panelists that like they explained how they started,
Mhm.
from the bottom and how they got to the top and in their own and all their own kinds of ways. It all ties back into like what like I've always loved since I was a kid, and just seeing like
Mhm.
ideas turn into like this huge like 30-minute piece or something like
Yeah.
that. Like just taking an idea and making it into something to this day like just fascinates me. So seeing that someone else can do that and that I was the person that helped them meet these
Mhm.
people, it brings me more than
Yeah.
joy.
That, thank you so much for your vulnerability.
Oh,
You actually spoke about this quite at length about how you're working on the inside out, but kind of recap for us the ways in 2020 and the ways right now that you are working on yourself from the inside out.
yeah, so I've like been talking to someone who's a Reiki
Mm.
master. Like the questions that they ask is like, I'm like, damn, I never really think about
Mhm.
these things. And it's the questions that have to do with unraveling a lot of past like family
Mm.
trauma, and then how do you deal with like basically asking me in like different forms of questions, how do you plan to stop the trauma from here?
Mm.
Like how do you try to grow from what it is that you went through, growing up with Caribbean parents or being in these kind of societies and communities that you've been a part of, whether they were good or bad. So talking to somebody who's specialized in keeping like a secret
Mhm.
community. So never be afraid to, seek out help for yourself. I know a lot of people go to like therapy and stuff like that. For me, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm
Mhm.
there yet to do that, but definitely talking to my
That's a
Reiki
form of
master
therapy for sure.
has
Yeah,
helped a lot.
that's therapy.
Yeah. I think it's just yeah, I think people just kind of have to like see what's right for
Exactly,
them.
exactly. Where can we find you? How can we support you?
You can support me by following me on Instagram. um, you can follow you can follow me on Instagram, and you can also follow my Bronx film organization BX Film 48 on Instagram
Okay.
as well, and on Facebook if you still use Facebook, because I know
Yeah,
people don't be
I
using
know.
Facebook
I'm
anymore
one of
like
those
that.
people. I go on and then I get off. I'm like, "Oh, I can't." I just see it and I'm like, "Oh my
For
gosh."
real.
But I still
You be seeing your relatives
yeah,
sharing things, you're like,
yeah,
"All right, I
everybody
don't
up in my
wanna."
messages. I can't. Oh Lord. Can you give us those handles though? Those handles again?
Yeah, sure. So for my personal handle, it's underscore, just type out the word under. Okay, so
Mhm.
I'll spell it. It's
Mhm.
UNDERSCORE, then an underscore, the actual
Mhm.
underscore, the little line, and then CHRISTINE. So underscore, actual
Mhm.
underscore, Christine. And then for Bronx Film 48, you can go on Instagram and just type in BX Film 48,
Okay.
and we will be
Got
there.
you.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank
And
you.
what closing words of love, wisdom, uplifting do you want to leave with the listeners?
Ooh, don't be afraid to be yourself. I know that sounds really generic, but being yourself is the best thing you could possibly be, and to own it as well. Never be afraid to. No, now it sounds stupid. Let me not.
Oh no.
Um, now I feel like I'm sounding so generic. um, let me
You can
see.
speak
Words of
specifically to
wisdom.
your community if you want. You don't got to speak to everybody.
Okay,
You
yeah,
can
I'm
speak
like,
to
what can I do to cater to everyone right now? I guess to my community, like, don't stop creating.
Mm,
If you feel like you have a really good idea, just do it. Like, the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't come
hmm
out good. And then, if that happens, then you come out with a really great lesson on what not to do and what to do when you have your next great
hmm
idea. Oh, another good thing of advice is like everybody always wants to be a director or a producer. You can be a director and producer, but there's also like really bad ones that are out there that don't really know what they're doing, or they're just not great at what they do. So if you're like a production assistant like me, or even an intern, like don't ever take that as like a super low position, or don't see yourself as like, oh, I'm like at the bottom of this like corporate ladder I have to climb.
hmm
Like Every experience is a learning experience. Don't minimize yourself because you're an intern or because, you're an amateur filmmaker. Like, don't even call yourself amateur. Like, call yourself a filmmaker. Call yourself the title that you know that you are. Like, if you make videos and you post them on Instagram and you get like thousands of views and you don't have a production company, you better make a production company and either name it after yourself or something that you love and call yourself the CEO or call yourself the director of this production, because it's true, So don't be afraid of titles to give yourself, and don't be afraid of the titles that you have now. Don't minimize that, because there's so much power in it. At least for me, like, I want to take on every title, before I can get to a producer or director level. So by the time I get there, like, I'll be good at what I do. Everything's a learning process. So I know, like, everyone says life is short, but also don't rush things. Like, just be in the
girl. Wait, I gotta repeat that. I gotta repeat that. Be in the beauty. Be in the beauty of it. Is that what you just said? Be in the beauty of it.
Yes, be in the beauty of it. Because when I did my internship, the whole time I'm like, damn, like, I'm tired. I gotta do this, gotta do that. But I'm like, yeah, you gotta really sit there and be like, look at where you are now, and just be proud of yourself. Because a couple of weeks ago, you weren't here.
Ooh, girl, you're gonna make me cry. I'm serious. That is.
Oh my
No,
God,
but I love crying. It's fine. I'm not afraid to cry. Yeah, I'm not afraid to cry. Oh, that's beautiful. Be in the beauty of it. Christine Garmendiz. Thank you so much for this excellent, excellent interview. That you just
thank you for having me.
That you didn't even know was coming. I just was on Instagram stories.
Yeah, I literally said, sure, why not?
Oh my gosh. Hey, before you go, this has been another episode of Inside Out Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Google Podcast, or follow on Spotify. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Yhá Productions, for more digital and visual content coming your way soon. Follow Inside Out Podcast on Instagram, and follow me, Ms. Right on Time, on the gram and Twitter. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Yhá Mourhia Wright. See it, say it, spell it, and don't wear it out.